You again tonight. We've been looking forward to being here with you. Round two of 40 minutes where we're discussing, and specifically, marriage and all things pertaining to marriage. I have the Moores with me this time, Travis and Melissa Moore. The twist tonight is, I'll just set this up and then we'll come back to it. The general topic is how to get your husband to change into what you need him to change into. Now, we did a real scientific data study on our congregation here at church at Summerville Baptist Church, and we picked like the top 5 contestants, and Melissa was right in there. So she is well qualified to talk about what influences a mate. So we're glad to have you guys
Happy
today.
to be here.
So
Glad to be here.
take just a second. Can't assume everybody knows you. A lot of the folks watching, I'm sure they do. But take a second and just tell us some basic stuff about how long you've been married, a little bit about your children and all that.
Okay. We've been married 19 years, and I guess the story goes back to 1999, was before we met actually. I moved to Virginia from West Virginia, and just had been out of college about a year and didn't know anyone in this new town and started attending the church. I grew up going to church, and that's what I knew and that's what I did. As a matter of fact, the first person I met, my first friend in Virginia, was her dad. Oh. And he was the pastor of the church. Okay. In the spring of 2000, I received some news that was shocking. Her father had died, and it was pretty tragic. And I remember I went to the church for the funeral, and he was the senior pastor of the church, and the people were lined up out the church and down the street. And I didn't know anyone really, and I stayed in the car, and I just kind of prayed for the people in the church because I knew they were hurting. And I prayed. I said, if there's something I can do for this family, Lord, show me what that is. And I had no idea I'd end up marrying the preacher's daughter. And my goodness, what was I into?
You got pretty actively involved.
I got very, I think God heard that prayer.
Be careful what you pray for.
Yeah. So anyway, fast forward that summer, I was playing on the church softball team, and all the guys kept saying, you need to meet Melissa. But she was still a college student, right? So she wasn't around all that much. Another year passed, and I was playing softball again, and all the guys were saying, you need to meet Melissa. And I had just bought a house, and I was mid-20s at the most at that point, and had very little money. I had stacked pizza boxes for end tables. I had no furniture, and I knew I needed furniture for this house. And I knew Melissa was graduating. And I thought my master plan was to hire her to be my interior designer. Oh. And so I kept asking, through that process, I kept asking her out. She kept telling me no over and over and over again. But I was very persistent. And eventually, once the project was done, she agreed to go out with me. And
After I went 20% over budget.
no, it was 60.
60%.
60.
Yes.
So today I'm the proud owner of an elephant lamp that I would never have
still
purchased,
beautiful.
and an oversized mirror that she thought was absolutely
But I wasn't going to let him get
necessary.
through work to get
but
to know me, so
that
I went
was-
60% over budget.
That's how we met.
So
and,
was he pretty cheap then, or was he a spender?
He couldn't look me in the eyes. So basically it was anything that, and when I would go and do a room, I stage it with all the accessories and all of that. So I staged that room pretty well, and I said, well, if we take these
was
items
open
out,
board.
the room is not going to look the same, and
But
it
I
didn't
couldn't
look
do
as
that.
good. And he's like, no, I don't like it. So there's a theory there.
I didn't care. I just wanted to meet her, honestly. That was my goal.
He
was
literally
to just,
stalked me
was
from the
to
balcony
meet her.
at church, if you want the true
He
story.
was stalking you in the
I
balcony.
did see, yeah.
He did. My brother's in the choir. He saw it. It happened.
So that's why all those people
Yeah.
sit in the balcony here.
That's why.
I don't know. I can't say what. I
surveying.
know that's what I was doing. I was looking for girls, honestly. I was in my 20s. I'm going to be honest. I mean, yeah. So anyway, we did start spending some time together in the fall of 2001, and I knew for sure that she was the one. I wasn't going to let her get away. Right.
Wow.
I mean,
It
that's
was
how
6
I would
months.
say
It was only 6
So,
months, we know.
I
months.
proposed in spring of 2000. 2000.
2000.
the next year, and I thought we'd be engaged for a while, honestly. But we were married in September.
Wow.
That same. So we dated and were engaged less than a year.
There you go.
So,
there you go.
we,
Well, you both sounds like you both had a certainty about it. So tell me about the children.
Yeah, you can tell that story.
We have 2 children. Our Joseph, just turned 12 yesterday.
Ah.
So when we first came to this church, we didn't have children. We got involved.
We had a youth group.
We had the youth group.
Yes,
Yes.
they were kids.
We had the sleepover at our house. We were very young and dumb and had an entire youth group at our house.
Crazy.
Then we had kids. But Joseph is 12.
Video games till midnight.
It was a lot.
Yeah, had to
Toilet
have-
paper,
People
the
make that
trees.
mistake one
That had to-
time.
yeah.
And then they're
It was once.
Yeah. No, they kept coming back.
Actually, they
some of the
did.
guys did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Joseph is 12 and our Mackenzie is 8. So we have a 5th grader and a 2nd grader. She's in ballet and he's a tennis player.
all right.
So
Yeah.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, let's get rolling with our topic here. I know Travis and Melissa lead a small group here in one of our Sunday school hours, and so they're having the opportunity to influence people roughly their age group every single week. And as you know by now, it took me a while to figure this out. Marriage is all about influence as well as a lot of other factors too. You know, how do we get our influence and how do we give it? And so Bible's always the most wise thing. Let me just read a couple of verses from 1 Peter 3 where Peter's talking and he talks about different roles, but he says, he's talking to the wives and he says, win over your husbands by your behavior when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. Your beauty should not come just from outward adornment, such as braided hair and wearing of jewelry. Instead, it should be of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is great worth in God's eyes. For this is the way the women in the past did, he says. That inner beauty of the soul is very, very, not only very attractive to men, but it's very influential. And so with that, I wanted to kind of jump in. First of all, do you know what the old school Smalley book on love languages? You know what your love language
I don't
is?
know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know. Mine is action. It's
I don't
actions. I don't know.
I can't
It's been
remember
a
all
long
of them,
time
but
right
there's
now.
like acts of kindness.
Yeah.
There is time, quality time. There's affection, just like the physical touch.
Mm-hmm.
There's words of affirmation. There's, I think I hit service. That's roughly it. Any of those?
Mine's a lot of service. I do a lot of service.
Probably. Yeah.
We probably need to take that class.
On the receiving end,
Yeah.
though, what means the most when he does it of those categories to you? Like acts of service?
Acts of service
Okay.
for me. Like it just randomly doing the laundry or
Which I don't
saying,
do.
hey, I'll pick up the kids or just I'll
Right.
pick up supper or make a reservation so you don't have to cook. Those kinds of
Help
things.
you out.
That I can do.
That's-
I
Yeah.
make reservations.
He's
Yeah.
real good
I
at
don't
it.
cook
He makes
very
a
much
mean
either.
reservation.
I can make
That's
a nice.
good.
I know I schedule reservations for restaurants usually 3 or 4 months in advance because some of these restaurants are hard to get into. So
are.
I schedule
Yeah.
them. So we've got schedules through March, April now for different
Good deal.
restaurants, like in Charleston. It's kind
Awesome.
of one of the things we like to do.
Awesome.
And so.
Typically,
I can't cook,
couples-
so I got to do something.
Well, I
you know,
can't either.
So.
Yeah, typically couples don't have the same love language. So do you know what, like, the best thing she can do for you is, of those that I mentioned? Words of affirmation?
I'd say
I'd say
words of affirmation.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like the respect that she gives, and if I don't feel like I'm getting it, I'll tell her,
Okay.
and which usually leads to a difference of opinion because she feels like she's giving me respect, but I may not feel it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, whereas I may take the initiative to plan dinners, I want her to take the initiative to plan events too. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
do.
she's working to make sure the house is spotless, which it usually is, and
Yeah.
the laundry is perfect, which it usually is, and the kids are taken care of. You know, I'm selfish. I want more, and that's not cool. I mean, that's not
Right.
that's not the way it should be. But
Well, that's good. So you're in tune with that then. And by the way, thanks for some of you watching in and letting us know you're out there. I didn't say it at the beginning, but log on, tell us you're out there. Debbie Varner is watching. So good to see you. Good to know you're there, Debbie. Stacy Reed, Andy Revel is watching. I think I saw Kevin Melling's name scroll by. Jim Schumard. Thank all of you for watching, and others are too. So let's play the game real quick. How to get your husband to change according to how you want him to change. I'm going to make it really easy for you, Melissa. I'm going to give you a choice between about 4 categories.
Okay.
And you can pick the one that's the most relevant.
Okay.
One is, how do I get him to give me his full attention when I'm trying to talk to him or we're trying to communicate? One is, how do I correct him without him getting defensive? You mean he needs correction?
I mean, you still want us married after this, right?
tough.
I mean,
I would prefer.
okay.
I would prefer. One is, how do I get him to share responsibilities around the house? Because that's your love language, is acts of service and kindness, right?
Yeah.
Another one, how do I get him to be emotionally with me and understand me versus give me how I'm supposed to fix it or give me a good lecture on advice he would give me. I don't know if that's a factor or not.
Okay.
Any of those
Wow.
jump out at you?
All right. Yes, give me my homework here so I can kind of go over what we did. Well, I think first off, I know what works for him and what doesn't in terms of how to speak to him. If I have an idea or a suggestion, the way it works best with Travis is to kind of plan and come up with that suggestion, but also make it feel like it's his idea and he's included.
Oh, the old psychology ploy.
Yes.
Huh?
So
That's
there's
the
a
oldest
little
trick in the book.
psychology, yes. But he does. He wants to be included in all of that.
Not always. Sometimes I don't care.
No, it depends on what it is.
It depends on. There are
Yeah.
a lot of things I mean,
just don't care about.
I spend a
No.
lot of time worrying about important things. You know.
Right.
What is the Federal Reserve going to do with interest rates? I worry about that. You
And
know,
I
I shouldn't, Pastor. I
don't.
shouldn't worry about it. But
don't.
you know,
I
but
don't.
like how
You
we're
don't
going to raise the
spend any
kids. I mean, that's something that I'll let her take care of that. So, you know.
By the way, I believe one of your coworkers is watching, Lisa Smith.
Lisa.
She's watching us burn.
She said, "Hello, boss man."
Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
she's
Lisa.
watching it flame here.
Yeah.
So back to that.
I can't change how he responds to things. I know how he responds to things. I've been with him for 19 years. So I
Right.
know when is a good time to approach him and when is not a good time to approach him. When he comes through the door, I can tell if he's had a hard day, a bad day. Let's table this conversation for later and discuss it when he's had that downtime so that we can talk about something maybe that more serious or something that needs an answer or what have you. I just kind of know when to approach him for those kinds of things. In terms of sharing the responsibility, I think a lot of times what works best for Travis is if I start doing something, then he sees me doing something, and if he is actually taking a break at that time, sometimes I think he goes, "Oh, she needs a little help," and that's kind of my way
Okay. So you just start doing it.
yes, I just start doing things.
So you're motivated to volunteer. You don't
he's
like to
more
be told,
motivated
but
to-
you don't mind volunteering then.
I'm happy to volunteer. It's hard to sit there and do nothing while she's working, you know. So I've got to do nothing. I've got to do something. But at the same time, I mean, we have, like every household, we have our chores
our
and our
roles.
responsibilities.
Sure.
That makes it
She
work.
hasn't started a lawnmower in 20 years.
Right.
You know, she hasn't picked up a stick in 20 years. She hasn't trimmed a head.
I did the
you
other
know,
day. Just
did
one.
you?
Just one.
But I mean, I probably haven't prepared more than a dozen meals, honestly, since we've been married.
Right.
And I tried. I
You don't
wasn't
want him
good
to.
at it.
That's probably a
so-
good thing.
You don't want him
right?
to.
Yeah.
But you know, we have our responsibilities that work for us. I mean, she doesn't pay the bills. I do that. You
Right.
know, so when it works, you know, there's not a question of is this going to get done or is that it'll get done.
Does he ever do like I'm gonna make a mess of this chore, this detail, so that she won't want to ask me again. So I'm gonna look like I'm just totally inept
No, I
at
wouldn't
this.
do that. I wouldn't do that.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
He may have one time with cooking.
No,
But
I'm really
I think he
bad.
legitimately tried,
I really
actually.
don't know
That's
what
the
I'm
sad
doing
thing.
in the kitchen.
He just didn't know.
It
I don't
just
know.
didn't work
My
out so
mom
well.
always cooked for me, and then no, I'm just really bad. I did learn how to make fudge this Christmas.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
And
That's
I made
pretty
way
impressive.
too much, but yeah, it's
And our son is
so
learning
I
to
can
cook.
make fudge.
And our daughter is
Good.
learning to cook. So
Other than that,
and
I'm-
laundry and do all those
I make
things.
reservations. That's
So-
what I make.
Well, that's
But
hard
we all
job.
have, we
It's
have our
hard
strengths
job.
and our weaknesses.
Yeah.
But I think, in circling back, I think in discussing different topics with Travis, for us, it's the timing thing. And if we catch each other and we've got a million things in
Right,
our head
right.
and something's not working, we just know at this point and can read each other so well that we know when to discuss certain topics.
Right.
Because of things that may be on our mind and knowing that it's going to be at a better time than another. So
Right.
for
so
us, that works.
do you announce ahead of time, like, hey, when you get home tonight, we need to have a talk? Or do you send him a text and say,
No,
what
she
time are
don't.
you going
I
to be
don't.
home? Because we need to have
No.
a sit-down, serious discussion.
No.
Do you do that?
I really don't.
Praise the Lord.
No.
No.
Because that's like a death
I
sentence.
really don't.
We text and talk during the day, and we don't schedule meetings to go
No.
through
Yeah.
decisions that need to be made. Typically, I don't think we do.
If it's something that pertains to the children, it's usually I'll call him during the day, depending on
Yeah,
the
I mean, we
timeline
talk
and when
about
an
it,
answer is
but-
needed.
That's good.
But
it's not like a set.
so when is a good time to catch him, like, in general?
you cannot during the day. You just kind of, if he doesn't answer, he's in a meeting. You
Right.
just know that he just back off because his schedule is so different every day. So it's just kind of catching him when I can. One of the best times for us, though, is when the children are down after 8 o'clock. The lunches are packed, the backpacks are ready, the homework's been
Okay.
done, all of that's been done so that we can take a breath. Because if we're trying to talk knowing that we've got this schedule for our children that works best for them so
Yep.
that they can function the next day, everything's running smoothly. If we try and talk in the middle of that and I'm cleaning up supper, it's not going to be good.
Right.
But that's not entirely true either, because a lot of days I'm asleep by 7:30.
Which is true. Which is true.
Some of those days
So it's
I'm
gotta
just,
be at
I
dinner
am just,
while
I
it's
watch, I
mouse.
go in
Right.
and you'll appreciate, I watch what
Watches Andy
I
Griffith
watch every
during
evening,
supper.
at least 3 episodes of Andy Griffith show, and if I'm awake at the end
like
of
we'd
it,
be the most boring
maybe
reality
Jeopardy
show.
and
They do
and
one pilot on us and be
8
like,
Yeah.
o'clock. I mean, I'm pretty much, I'm laying down or I'm in my recliner or I'm.
Well, hey, that Andy Griffith, you're pouring into your
I
marriage.
mean,
I knew you were a godly
I'm
man.
trying.
That's why.
I'm trying. Yeah.
So
I'm just. Yeah.
so that's good to know. It's kind of as you can grab the time, but you know your patterns well
I know
enough.
the patterns and I know the
Yeah.
moods and I know what's a good time to approach
Yeah,
it.
and there's
so-
less distraction because if you pick the wrong time, I know the way I am, it's like you're gonna get name, rank, and maybe serial number, and that's it. It's like, I'm not giving anything to shoot at here, and that's totally wrong. But that leads to like it'd be better than if
we
we
just
even
don't.
talk.
We don't like conflict. We don't like fighting. I don't
We
like
don't.
tension. I don't like any of that. So if we can time it to where we're both clear-headed and we don't have a million things running through our head.
And we don't fight. We really, I mean, we have differences of opinion about certain things, but we don't
Good.
fight.
Well, let me jump in there a minute.
Because a lot of things we
because
don't worry about,
That's a little bit unusual, I think, with a
don't.
lot of couples, and that's related to. I think I just wrote down correct without being defensive. But let's say he's out of bounds on something you feel like, and you're going to have to confront that. Knowing now that neither one of you
Okay,
like
confrontation.
conflict or confrontation. How you going to break that out? I don't know of a scenario, but how do you normally go about that?
I think once again for him it's timing, and once again for me, so that I can make sure that I don't blow up. I need to take a step back
Right.
and figure out the timing that I'm calm enough to be able to have a good conversation with him. The way that we should, respectfully,
Right.
anything like that. But we're not the type that are going to sit there and name call each other and slam doors, and that's not our style.
No, our kids have never heard yelling or screaming or. I can read her. I mean, when she's upset, I can tell. I mean.
And believe it or not, as
huge at that.
outgoing as I am actually more the introvert. He is more the one that would like to discuss and do all of that, and I'm the one that it's actually very hard for me to say what I need to say.
Has it always been like this, or in the early days, did you have to learn some things the hard way?
I think I've always been. I'm more of a closed book, and that's not a good thing. It's not a good quality, and I hold a lot of things in.
You've always been guarded.
But I've always been very, very guarded, and that's just
You've protected yourself because I think you've been hurt at different times by different people.
Yeah.
And I've got to be sensitive to that. You know.
But he's one that when he has something on his mind, though, he will just.
It's pretty direct.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it can be direct.
Is that okay, or sometimes that
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Maybe.
not get received well?
We're not perfect people.
So all right, let's play that scenario out. He's too direct. He kind of nails you inside here. It's like, oh, that hurt, and I'm not sure I like that. What do you do at that point? You just kind
A
of
lot of times I close up.
She will.
you just close.
I close up and I don't say anything because I think when it gets to that point and somebody is so passionate about something, I just think you need to take a step back
Right.
and you need to just kind of chill until you can take that time and rationally talk about it a little bit later.
So later,
So
is
yes.
there a time when you circle
Yes.
back
Yeah,
around
you always
and
make
say,
sure that you finish.
what I need
we
to,
never go. We don't go to bed mad. That's
Never
just
have.
that's a rule,
which is a biblical thing.
right?
Ephesians 4 actually, y'all, sheds a lot of light on just some quality basics. One of the verses of Ephesians 4 says, the first thing we always have to guard is the truth. Now, sometimes there's the too abrupt, too direct, truth without love, as the Bible says. And we're not talking about that. But the one thing that couples realize right away, sometimes the hard way, is do not shade, withhold, deny the truth, even if it's going to hurt, even if it's going to disappoint the other person. Try to at least present and stick to the truth, because if you lose that, you lose trust. If you lose trust, now there is really no communication other than scheduling and things like that. Another is keep it positive. Even you can have a pretty good fight and still keep it positive, though. And you're probably a pretty good psychologist, because you've already said I'm making him think that everything's his idea anyway. So. But you know, that's the thing of affirming each other. And in some encounters I've had, I've told couples, I said, look, y'all, it can get a little bit intense and it can get heated as long as you have the security of your relationship. Because if you start to fear for the relationship, that conflict either gets more edge to it or more hurtful, or both sides just close down and nothing happens. It's almost like we can really have a hard discussion here and it can get heated, but I know and you know I'm not going anywhere, and you're not going anywhere. So we can resolve this even if we get our feelings hurt. That's much more healthy than to withhold hurt and feelings because you're afraid the relationship's going to cave in.
And that's something that we've always said. There'll be times when I just don't like you very much. I love you, but I don't like you very much.
Yes.
And that does not by any means, when I make a commitment, I make
Right.
a commitment, and it's for life. And I made that
Right.
with our marriage, and that foundation is there, and it was in front of our family, but most importantly, God.
Yeah.
And when I make that commitment, and I don't take that lightly. So when we have disagreements, I look at them and I say, well, you're still stuck with me. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
what it is. So we might as well get over this because you're still going to see me in the morning.
You know, I've heard it's
So.
cheaper to keep her, too. I heard that from someone in my Sunday school class. I actually
Spoken like a
mentioned that.
true financial
Oh, stop,
analyst,
stop.
by the way.
No, that was from it's a joke. One of our dear friends that we spend some time with, and that's one of the things they say.
Cheaper to keep her?
Cheaper to keep her. No, but no, we don't really have those thoughts ever to even consider.
He goes out of town a lot and travels and all of that. It's just, there's that trust there that honestly, bad thoughts and what if
We don't
have
worry about it.
never in our 19 years of marriage ever been that way.
That's huge. Well, Cindy is watching. Donna Weiling is watching. Danny Ritchie is watching. Barbara Taylor West is watching. And Julie, Julie Dugan, I believe,
Hi,
before
Julie.
I saw her name scroll by, you probably know her. So the third leg of that stool I mentioned from Ephesians 4, I might as well finish that out too and ask you guys how you do this. The other thing that we have to be able to do in a good marriage is to forgive and to ask for forgiveness. Spend a lot of time doing that. And so here's my question about the way you're wired up. Is it easier for you to say, I blew it, will you forgive me? Or is it easier for you to say, oh, no, I forgive you? Which conversely means it'd be a little bit harder for you to admit that you're wrong or that you can get over it and forgive somebody. Is that clear?
I think it's hard for both of us. We both like to think that we're right. In a situation. That's just natural. So I think that is something to admit, hey, I've messed up. It's just a natural thing. I know that is probably difficult for you.
Yeah, one time I thought I was wrong, but I was wrong. So I'm just kidding.
This is what I'm dealing with.
Bad jokes. Bad jokes. I'll stick with Andy Griffith.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Andy would have admitted he was wrong.
No, I'm wrong all the time. I'm wrong all the time. And it is hard to admit, of course.
Right.
But sometimes I think it's part of just growing up. You
up.
acknowledge, yeah, I dropped the ball.
Yeah.
You know, to use baseball terminology. Yeah, I committed the error.
Right.
I own it. It's in the book.
So
Will you forgive me? You know.
Yeah,
so.
I'm hearing both of you say that's probably the harder of the two is to admit that you were the one who messed up.
And I think that goes back to Travis and I are perfectionists at what we do. Anything that we do, we always end up being leaders of everything that we've ever done. And so when you have those types of personalities, and always making sure that things are just so, or that every event is just right, or whatever. I think it's hard when you have that type of personality.
Right.
It's just a personality trait, so it's hard to admit even more. I think that you're wrong, because you work so hard not to be wrong.
Right. Yeah. Plus, if you're really passionate about something, it's easy to be misled yourself into feeling like, well, it's got to be right because I'm so sure of the path here. And that's what leaders do. Leaders know they have to be decisive and they have to be certain even when there's a lot of uncertainty around it, or else you're not leading. People are not following you. So then when you get to the end of that trail and you realize, oh man, I was wrong. That takes a lot.
And that's a gut punch. But I think when you can look back at something that maybe you've even led and you go, you know what? Yeah, I was wrong. But you learn from that experience so that you can go on and be a better leader, a better wife, a better spouse, what have you.
Yeah. So true or false, in one of those encounters, there's a little bit of conflict. There's got to be an admission of I was wrong and an apology maybe. Does that hurt your relationship or strengthen your relationship?
I think it strengthens it.
To admit that you messed up.
It definitely strengthens it.
It's humbling.
It
It
is.
strengthens for sure.
Absolutely it does. And that's another fallacy that especially younger couples don't get, especially guys. If I can speak to us, it's like, man, if I admit I don't know how to do it, if I admit I messed up, she's going to finally figure out that I don't have all the answers and I'm not as good as I want, that I hope she thinks I am, and it'll all be over.
But it draws you closer.
It actually sometimes
draws you closer.
The honesty and the humility, as you said, those are key. Those are cornerstones to a marriage. They
Because
really
it
are.
takes two. It takes two of you. You don't always have to be this high leader that has all the answers. You don't, because you're a team.
Exactly. And remember who our model is, Christ.
Exactly.
Who was more honest than Christ,
Right.
spoke the truth all the time, and who was more humble than Christ?
But
Nobody.
but don't you think sometimes people go into a marriage or into any relationship and they aren't completely forthright before they go into
Absolutely.
it? And you know, I heard a story recently of a gentleman who had served in Korea and Vietnam, and he was a good person. He retired from the military, but he would never go to church with his wife.
Yeah.
She was there every time the doors were open, but he would never go. And she would say to him, "Honey, will you go? Will you go?" And he still said no. And eventually it came out, the things he had done and things he had ordered other people to do during times of war, he was ashamed of. And in his mind, church wasn't the place for him because he had earned hell.
He'd gone too far.
He had gone too far, but he didn't want his wife to know his past. You know, so I think it takes having that just brutal honesty,
Yep.
saying this is where I've been, and you know, once she understands that, then perhaps she can put him in touch with the right person who can counsel him and talk to him. But until then, he's going to feel hopeless. You
Exactly
know? And
right.
what a horrible feeling that would be, to live your life thinking that God doesn't want to have anything to do with you because of something you've done in the past.
It's a shame type of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, it's
that,
like spiritually crippled. And he was, you know,
Well, it's almost like
so
this
distraught
hidden secret.
he didn't even want to tell his wife about it. You know, so I think you never know. There's things going on in people's lives that.
well, before time runs out on us, now you've opened up a door there I know that you both are qualified to speak into. So now let's come around on, okay, we got a husband and wife team here that are teaming up to do ministry in the church through a small group Bible study.
Yeah.
You see what I see a lot, and that is a very faithful young lady who's dragging 3 little ones across the parking lot, and they've been at it, and she is harried, and she's already tired, and it's only 10 till 9 in the morning on Sunday morning. She gets them deposited to their places, and then she runs down to the worship center, or she runs into your class for her Bible study hour, and it's like a real pain and exasperation because he's not here.
Just don't want it alone.
And he doesn't have to be away. He's not having to work. He's not on deployment with the military. He is choosing to not participate in what, of course, we believe is the most important hour of the whole week. So are there some things you can do to encourage, whether it's a husband or a wife who are the one coming solo, to encourage them? What have you found maybe in some cases helps with guys, whether it's unresolved guilt or unresolved grief or whatever?
Well, I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, you
Right.
see gentlemen coming alone as well, and you see the ladies, and it breaks your heart. You got to get to the
Got to get to
you
the
got to
root
get
of
to
it.
the root of it.
Yeah.
You know, go back to the 80s. How many young men were shunned by leaders in a church because they wore their hair a little too long? You know?
Yeah.
How many people walked into a church and someone said, "You're in my seat, get up"? That happened to me one time. Not here, but it did happen to me in a church. It was her home church, actually. I think people have experiences where they're not necessarily angry with the Lord, but they're angry with those that are active in a church
Yeah.
who represent the Lord.
Represent the Lord.
Someone who, I had a coach years ago. His wife was in church every time the doors were open. He would never go. I don't know the whole story, but as I understand it, he lost a parent early on in his life, and a Christ follower said, "The Lord will heal him," and it didn't happen. So he becomes bitter.
Yep.
He doesn't trust the church. He doesn't trust people. So I think oftentimes people, for one reason or another, they feel like they don't know what to believe. They've been given false theology, false advice, things that aren't necessarily true. And as a result, they are bitter toward the church. And they don't want to have anything to do with it. So I think if a spouse can get to the heart of that, then there can be some sort of resolution. But people screw up so many times. I mean, it's just, I'm reminded of Luke chapter 7 when Jesus went to the home of the Pharisee named Simon, and the woman who had lived a sinful life came up behind him. And she wet his feet with her tears and poured perfume on his feet and dried them with her hair. And the Pharisee doesn't understand why she's doing it. What right type of relationship would that woman have had in that town with the Pharisee? More likely than not, what I know about Pharisees is he would have walked around the street to avoid her.
Right.
Yet somehow she's come in contact with Jesus. Her life was changed. So the Pharisee was the one who represented God for the people of that town. And I don't know, how many times do we do things that significantly impact people's relationship with the Lord, whether we realize it or not? And as a result, it lingers.
That's a great point. Sometimes we have to lose our religion in order to find Christ.
Yeah.
It sounds so bad, but there are toxic things that happen sometimes. You were about to say something a minute ago.
Well, and sometimes too, it's not the spouse. Unfortunately, it's not the spouse that's not going to get through to them.
Right.
Sometimes it's somebody else that is going to plant the seed. So possibly if they get to know somebody else in the Sunday school, it's another couple, they have them over.
Sure. You bet.
Somebody in that couple can actually reach him.
Yep.
Because once again of the pride. Maybe he doesn't want to say, and this is not just for men. There are many men that come with their children. I have seen them. So it's vice versa, but it's all about being able to plant those seeds. And unfortunately, sometimes we may not be the ones that get through to somebody.
That's a great point. I baptized a guy a while back who, men are typically more task-oriented. So sitting in what they fear is a lecture or a discussion of the Bible that they don't know, it's intimidating and it's not appealing. But if some guys from the class say, we're going to your thing, we're going on the ATV, we're going hiking, we're going here and there, we're going to the football game. I know a guy that his teacher invited him to a football game, and by halftime they'd gotten into some pretty heavy-duty discussions on spirituality.
Sure.
By the time they're walking through the parking lot to go to their car after the game, he had led this young man to know Christ personally. Sure. And, it never was intended, but that's exactly how
I've shared scripture many times with guys after ball games out in the parking lot.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. Yeah. I'm a big advocate for that. In watching my father, that was how he reached a lot of people.
Especially men.
Especially
men
the men.
Have to be.
The men basketball and baseball, he was real adamant about that.
Yeah.
And loved that. But that was a great way to be able to bring some of the guys in the community that were like, listen, I'm not putting my foot in that church building. It is not happening.
Yeah.
Well, don't you know, my dad would get a hold of them, and a year later they're putting that
eat
foot in
those
the church.
words.
That's right.
Thank you, Drown family. The Gallaghers are watching. Several other, the Smiths.
Got one question.
Oh,
we got
I
a
do?
question.
I have a question here. Let me see if I can find it. This is from Lisa Smith. What 3 words will resolve conflict for you? What 3 words will resolve conflict for you? Ryan Beckman's watching too. Do you know?
What 3 words?
I'm done. No, I'm kidding.
That's 2 words.
That's not it.
You got one more.
I'm so done.
She's probably thinking, I love you.
Yes,
would be a
that's
good thing
it.
for me to
Good
say
answer.
to my wife.
Yeah.
I love you.
I didn't do the church answer. I'm
But,
sorry.
why use 3 words when 2 will do? Yes, dear will work as well. Yes, dear.
That's a great one.
That one would work.
That's the whole crux of premarital counseling
think so.
too, by the way. When you
Yeah,
learn
yes,
you're
dear.
right and yes, dear. That's all you need
Or,
to know.
yeah, let's pray about it. That's
Ooh.
4.
That's 4 words.
Let's
That's
pray.
4.
Let's pray.
Let's pray.
Well, I tell you, this has been very helpful. I think that to you. I'm just grateful that this couple is in places of leadership in this church. Their spiritual maturity and their desire for the Lord and their ability to lead other couples and quasi-mentor them. By the way, we have plenty of older couples here who provide great mentorship if any of you are looking for that. We do Bible studies. We will be doing this the next 2 or 3 Tuesday nights. We're going to be doing a teaching series later this year on marriage and family here at our church. And so stay tuned to Facebook. Check out the website. Get on our email list. Come Sunday, we'd love to engage with you about the basics of Bible study for comprehension and for application, because that, to me, is still the foundational basics of every good marriage.
Yep.
So I'm proud of Travis and Melissa. I happen to know your parents, and I know your mom, and it's not hard for me to imagine how they've gotten spiritually where they are, because you had very godly parents, too.
Drug problem.
Had a drug problem.
Drug us to church every
That's
Sunday.
right.
Every week.
And so we're just glad that you've tuned in today. I want to thank Joshua and Braden, our brains behind this thing,
Yes.
with the technology that they have. And so can I pray for all of you out there? Send this on to some folks, some couples that might need a little bit of encouragement tonight, if you will, and tune in next week, or come see us online or in person on Sunday. Let's pray together. Father, I thank you for the Moores, and I pray that you'll continue to bless them in their pursuits. Professionally is one thing, but also I know how active they are in the community and trying to set up good forums to where our community is stronger through the root cause of the relationship with Christ there too. And thank you for all the people in co-ed situations that they're able to teach and to lead and encourage every week here also. So God, we continue to need your wisdom. I believe we continue to see our culture just crumble around us, and I believe the basis of that is we have lost the strength of the American family unit. And we've redefined it, we've reworked it, we've reconstructed it so many ways that it's lost its meaning, and people now are like those sheep without a shepherd. So may the great shepherd be active in all of our viewers' lives this week, and we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you again. So long until next time. Hey.